And it wasn't just the American interrogators, it was the MI5 when they used to come to interrogate us. It was exactly the same. There was no difference between the Americans interrogating us and the British. The only thing different was the accent. We were being interrogated exactly the same questions asked numerous occasions by the British, and we'd ask them what's happening with our families. These threats are being put against us by the Americans that they're going to extradite our families. And every time they'd say, we don't know what's going on, we don't know about your case, we've just been sent here to question you, which was lies. You could tell by their faces that everything they were saying was lies, but it's the fear of not knowing what's happening. And the first time I was ever interrogated in Guantanamo was by the British, which was within 36 hours of arriving in Guantanamo.
Right.
And they said to me, after I told them everything that happened, I went through it word by word, telling them everything, and they turned around and said to me that every single word that has come out of your mouth is a lie, and you're going to be spending the rest of your life in Guantanamo. To hear that from the Americans, you still have that hope that the British will do something, but to hear from your own country people, you just lose hope. And there's a lot of people losing hope. A lot of people try to take their own lives because it's the despair of not knowing what's happening, being taken to interrogation numerous occasions, not being able to get any sleep. Every 15 minutes you're taken to interrogation. For 10 minutes you're back to your cell, 15 minutes you're taken to interrogation, and this goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and eventually you're going to break, you're going to start going crazy, and that's what was happening there. And the beatings that people were getting, we would put in our cells, and soldiers would come into our cells saying that we want to search your cell. You'd be taken out, and like 6 soldiers holding you down, beating you up, especially in Camp X-ray. When they would take you out your cell, it'd be gravel on the floor, and there's 3 soldiers kneeling on you, holding you down, and 2 soldiers searching your cell, and you're basically being beaten up by them. And at the same time, you know in your heart you haven't done anything wrong, and why you're here, and you just start going crazy slowly.
Thank you. I think that actually leads on to the next topic that I want to discuss, which is torture and prolonged conditions of prolonged abusive conditions, essentially, and what that does to you, and how it creates an environment in which false confessions are produced. And we know from what we've heard about Dr. Aafia's story that she has mentioned that she saw her children being abused, that she made false confessions as a result of this. Now, I know that what has happened really throughout the war on terror is that the United States failed to understand that the way that you get reliable information from somebody is that you don't torture them. Torture is illegal. All the civilized countries in the world, most countries in the world have signed up to the United Nations Convention Against Torture to outlaw the use of torture. And one of the reasons is not just because any decent person is revolted by the prospect of torturing another human being, but also because if what you're actually seeking is reliable information, it's the most useless way to go about it. The old school approach that President Bush and Dick Cheney and Don Rumsfeld swept away after 9/11 was that you build a rapport with somebody. If you talk to FBI interrogators who had successfully prosecuted, been involved in terrorism cases before 9/11, they would tell you that. It involves playing psychological games with somebody across the table from you who you suspect or know committed some crime. You may not like them, you probably don't like them if those are the circumstances, but you find a way to build a rapport with them without torture, without the use of torture. So the implementation of that has obviously tainted everything that has happened in the war on terror. Guantanamo, where 174 men remain, this is still the case, that the supposed evidence against these men is fundamentally unreliable, because either they were tortured or abused, or other people were tortured or abused. And the point I wanted really to discuss briefly about what happened in Guantanamo is that after the CIA had been instructed by some devious lawyers working illegally and giving false advice on behalf of the Bush administration about torture, Donald Rumsfeld, the head of the military, the defense secretary, wanted this to be implemented at Guantanamo. And there was a terrible period when you were both there that involved the frequent flyer program, that involved extreme heat and cold and isolation and the use of phobias. And it was a program that was particularly, so people were subjected to it in large numbers and over a long period of time, resulting in false confessions. And I know that in your case, they eventually dug up some ridiculous video that they claimed were you in some militant camp that was patent lies, but that you cracked. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about that aspect of Guantanamo, when that program was introduced with the frequent flyer program and the heat and the cold and the isolation, and how you were led to make those false confessions.
The frequent flyer program means basically a detainee is picked by his interrogator, simply because maybe they think he's a high profile. What they would do, every 15 minutes they would move you from cell to cell throughout the clock. So if you just imagine, to move a person, it takes at least 20 minutes. The procedure to move someone, they need to be shackled, which takes about 10 minutes. The door needs to be opened. There have to be 3 guys who need to escort the person to another cell. And it's not like you move from cell 1 to cell 2. You could be from cell 1, which is Alpha block, to block B or block C. So you can just imagine how long it takes for a person to be transported from one place to another. And that would happen every 15 minutes. So it means as soon as you get into your cell, 15 minutes from that time, you're going to get moved again through that clock. So just imagine getting moved every 15 minutes of the day. You can't sleep for weeks upon weeks. Some brothers went through it for months, and eventually you become like a vegetable. You have no control over your head. You have your body. You're just like a zombie, living zombie. And eventually, you can't kneel down, because we had to kneel down to get shackled up, to get prepared to move from cell to cell. What they do, because I'm so tired and so exhausted of being moved to place, what they will do is walk in your cell and they kind of drag you to the next cell, to the next block. That's a frequent flyer program. Then you have obviously when they would limit your food. If you are in isolation, they would limit your proportion of the food. You wasn't getting a huge amount of meals like we get here, and especially after Ramadan, after iftar, everyone rams themselves. But just imagine you're getting, what we used to get in a normal blocks. We would get. How should I put this now? Just imagine you get 2 pieces of bread, and probably enough sauce just to wipe that plate clean. That's your meal, and breakfast would be even small, and lunch you would get literally nothing. So just imagine them controlling your meal now. So you don't even get half of that or a quarter of that if you're on that program. And on top of that, you're isolated. You're in isolation. You can't speak to nobody. You can't talk. You can't come out your cell. You don't get to go to the showers for recreation and so on. I kind of forgot what you told me to talk about.
Just how the circumstance, all these things that they were doing to you would, it was really, you have spoken a bit about the different things that they did to you, but it was how it would lead you to a position where you would make false confessions.
Okay. Basically, in 2003, that's when I think the condition of the prison got extremely worse, when General Miller was put in power. And basically, before that, it was not as bad. But when General Miller came in power, when he became the general there, they started introducing short shackling, hot and cold temperatures, isolation for long period of time, the frequent flyer program, and so on. So what that means is basically, if you're classed as a high profile person, these things would apply to you, and you would have all these kind of things happening to you. You go to interrogation on a daily basis, be short shackle. Short shackle is, I don't know if you guys know what a 3-piece suit is. If you watch American films, when the prisoner gets arrested, they put handcuffs on him, which has a link, and there's a chain that falls to the feet. It's like, they call it a 3-piece suit. And when you walk, you actually shuffle like a penguin. So the restriction of the shackle itself is quite tight. The short shackling, what they do is they put you in a room, and there's a hook on the floor. and they uncuff your hands, get a separate pair of cuffs, cuff your hands, make you bend down, and they put that link where the shackles is in that hook, padlock that, force you to bend down, put your hands behind your back, and get a separate pair of cuffs and cuff you. Just imagine your hands being cuffed where your ankles are. And that's short shackling, which means you can't actually sit flat-footed. So you constantly on your toes, on the ball of your foot. If you go forward, it cuts into your wrists, and if you go backwards, it cuts into your ankles. So you can be in that position for days, sometimes for 2-3 days. I mean, I went through it for about 2.5 days. I think Shafiq did the same. But some brothers, especially the Arab brothers, they went through for a longer period of time. And that's short shackling. And obviously, if you have to urinate or go, if you need to take number 2, you'd have to urinate on yourself and defecate on yourself. You wasn't allowed to pray. During that period, they would have extremely loud music. They would have strobe lights, and you just imagine being in that room. It's a very small room. It's a very confined room. It's only like about 2 by 2, if that. And it's kind of soundproof. So they got a system in there, and then playing, most likely it was heavy metal music. They'd have strobe lights. So it's like you being in a nightclub, but it's not. And eventually, after being there for 3-4 hours, first of all, it's the pain that's killing you. Then afterwards, you try to kind of concentrate on other things to kind of relieve yourself of the pain, think about things. But when the music's on, it's in your ears constantly, and eventually you can start hearing every instrument that's playing, every note. And at the same time, they would come in with dogs and interrogate you. Dogs would be right, by your face, barking, and throwing, kicking you, punching you, asking you to sign confessions. You're Al Qaeda, you're this, you're that. And through it, you're just thinking in your head. You kind of, your mind goes blank, and eventually you start hearing things and seeing things. Even when they're gone, you think they're still there. So it kind of takes over your mind. And eventually, I mean, me and Shaf and some other brothers who were subject to these kind of things, we all signed a confession. We came to the point that I came to a point because we was isolated for about 5 months as well. And I said to myself, I'm in Guantanamo, it can't get worse. So let me just sign this piece of paper and let me see what happens. Because if they take me to court, it's better for me. At least I can tell my part of the story, and I'll probably have a lawyer. So we all went into interrogation, and they had these photos, and there's a video of Bin Laden giving a speech, and there's a crowd like yourself just sitting there, and there was Mohammed Atta there, and behind apparently there's 3 of us, me, Shafiq and Asid, and there was like the pictures were a still of a video, so it's very, very poor quality. You can even see the person's face, but simply because in my interrogation I said I was wearing an Adidas tracksuit bottom, and this guy had a tracksuit top just like yourself, and I said, well, this is you. Do you know what I mean? And it was just amazing. I thought, yeah, okay, that's me. And I said, give me a piece of paper. And we all signed to say we're part of Al Qaeda. We knew about 9/11 and blah blah blah. And alhamdulillah, it stopped. All the bad treatment stopped, which was amazing. And I thought, why didn't they say that? Before, when the first day I got there, And after a few months, we was released, which was quite really strange. But that's why it happened. When you are subject to these kind of treatment, you eventually break. You eventually crack. Some people go to the extreme of them, trying to kill themselves, and I witnessed many brothers who tried to hang themselves, to cut themselves with the plates, the plastic spoons and knives, to sharpen you up. Whatever method they tried, they wasn't successful. But obviously, 2 were. Two brothers did manage to kill themselves, apparently, but it's quite hard to believe because everything was tightly controlled. It's impossible to kill yourself in Guantanamo.